Hi everyone, Fulthany Met-Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Disclosure album, Alchemy. Brotherly electronic music duo Disclosure, they are back with their fourth full-length album, a surprise drop that had no teasers to come out beforehand. Was definitely not planning on putting out a Disclosure album review this week, that's for sure. But I guess I was pleased to find that they are continuing to dabble in a pretty versatile array of electronic dance music styles, like on their last album, Energy, which came out in 2020, and while I did not love that record, I did enjoy that the duo was not trying to give us another super calculated and commercial release like they did on Caracal in 2015. I mean, Energy overall may have run a little bit more like a compilation, a random bunch of aspiring bangers, but it still had some great highlights and came across more raw and energetic than their star-studded sophomore album. And Alchemy, I think, is sounding a little bit like it's supposed to be for the heads too. Considering the tracks on this thing don't even flash a feature list, I mean, the album itself isn't without vocals, but it's surprising to see Disclosure go without any kind of big collab or crossover going into the release of a new album, considering how historically that's been kind of a part of their recipe for success. Whether you're talking about Latch with Sam Smith, White Noise with Aluna George, or Confess to Me that featured Jessie Ware. Speaking of which, it's been about a decade since the release of their debut album, Settle, which may be another cause for the release of this album. However, I feel like the 11 tracks and 39 minutes on this thing are kind of taking the vibe down a notch. Just look at the opening sounds of this LP that kind of kick things off. It's a sort of the sound effect of some footsteps entering into what sounds like an open-air lounge where a small to medium-sized crowd of people may be enjoying some afternoon drinks, indulging in a bit of brunch. And the music you begin to hear shortly after this feels like what you would have like a downtown LA DJ spinning for this exact vibe and context, which in concept sounds a lot less exciting than the warehouse rave aura that was emanating off of some of the better tracks from Energy. And yeah, that's pretty much because it is. I mean, are the gummy and smooth synth layers and dressing room kicks on this opening track bad? No. But are they memorable or standout? Not really. Overall, I'm kind of surprised this is a Disclosure track because it sort of sounds like someone ripping them off with a fraction of their experience. By comparison, the hypnotic grooves, looping bass, and sort of jittery vocal chops on the following Simply Won't Do hit a lot harder, a big step up in terms of detail and technical execution. It's a great fusion of techno and house. I wish it had a more epic progression to it, but I could listen to this one all day. We hear the continued versatility on Higher Than Ever Before, where the brothers dabble in some break beats and some very atmospheric synthesizers, along with some whispery vocal leads too. Nothing too thrilling about this one at first, but the subtle little rhythmic switch-ups throughout the track are nice. Plus those stuttering vocal and synthesizer bits that pop up in the second half really sell it. The track a little bit also matches that laid-back afternoon lounge vibe that I mentioned with the opener earlier. The grooves are there, but the textureless perks and the very heavily treated lead vocals make me feel like I'm soaring through a post-technological utopia where people travel by tube. By comparison, Go the Distance comes off a bit more sensual. The beats on this one have a real libido to them, as do the spoken word vocals, plus a stellar sequenced bass line which takes on some squelchy acid vibes as the track goes deeper. That's a highlight on the record for sure, but the album kind of goes downhill from here though. We Were in Love does have a decent rhythm section behind it, but to be honest, it does feature the most obnoxious and stale chord progression on the entire album. I can't say much more about the 2-chord progression on the track Sun Showers though, but the bass lines and beats on this one are a big improvement. Then with Purify, we get kind of a random 2-minute bright drony ambient passage, which comes across kind of like a waste because this is not a super long album to begin with. Why we need a break in the midst of it all, I don't know. Then with the track Brown Eyes, the intro sounds like we're getting into a car and about to drive off to somewhere else, but we're scanning the radio for something more interesting to listen to along the way. But I guess we settle on like a slight Daft Punk ripoff with heavily treated vocals, singing about brown eyes, some peppy disco grooves in the background as well. Again, not terrible, but not really sticking out to me either, and maybe a little too scant in terms of length. Then the closer, Talk on the Phone, brings us right back to that loungy vibe the whole record kind of kicks off with, and it's listenable, yeah, but it's so background and flavorless, I don't really see myself coming back to this at all. But yeah, overall my thoughts on this record, kind of mixed, honestly. It's not consistently amazing or awful, and kind of feels like a dud overall in the duo's discography so far, honestly. I was hoping for, something that is 10 years down the road, post their debut, to be a bit more momentous, really. But yeah, this is the opposite. This almost just kind of feels like odds and ends, or tracks that maybe down the road they would have introduced some bigger voices onto to possibly conjure up a hit or something like that. Yeah, I'm feeling a light to decent 5 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Disclosure, forever.